average Indian diet comprises of 60 to 70% of carbohydrates compared to the recommended 45 to 65%. Our protein intake, which is essential for overall health, is far below the recommended 48 grams per day. To illustrate better, our top 5 most consumed foods, tea, chapati, milk, boiled rice and biscuits, are majority carbohydrates with little protein. Additionally, India's romance with sugar and salt has reached alarming levels. We consume 8 grams of salt per day, exceeding the WHO's 5-gram recommendation. And when it comes to sugar, India consumes the most sugar in the world. Our sugar intake, in fact, has soared to 18 kgs per year, equal to 10 to 12 teaspoons per day. In just a decade, we have more than doubled our sugar consumption, along with a 75% increase in our consumption of trans fat, all this which parallels the rapid rise in ultra-processed foods, which has seen a staggering 13.37% increase in retail sales from 2011 to 2021. And yes, we are paying a hefty price for our dietary habits. India today is the diabetes capital of the world, home to 17% of diabetics globally. Hypertension affects 35% of the population, 81% grapple with abnormal cholesterol levels, 28 out of 100 Indians are obese, and more than 50 out of 100 Indians, or more than half of the adult population, has belly fat, a big risk for diseases such as diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, blood pressure, amongst others. And children are not spared from this nutritional crisis either. Childhood obesity has skyrocketed from 1.6% in 2006 to a concerning 3.5% by 2020. With over 14.4 million Indian children now classified as obese, one of the highest rates globally. As we delve deeper into India's nutritional landscape, we confront the stark reality of poverty and deprivation. Shockingly, over 70% of India cannot afford healthy food, and a staggering 80% suffer from protein deficiency. In this episode of Health Matters, we unravel the complexities of India's dietary habits. Join us as we dissect the what and the how of India's eating patterns with insights from Dr. Eileen Canday and Dr. Vishakha Shivdasani. In part 2 of the show, we will delve into the delicate relationship between food and digestive health, exploring common medical conditions and solutions with Padma Shri awardee Dr. Amit Maide.
It's all about how you are eating and what you're eating. So a combination of an idli sambar or even a paratha with curds makes that life easier.
I see lots and lots of metabolic diseases that come to me. So whether it is obesity, whether it is polycystic ovaries, whether it is dyslipidemias, fatty liver, type 2 diabetes, all of them. And if you're a diabetic, I wouldn't say limit, I would say cut off processed food. Nothing that comes out of a tin, can, bottled, is processed, should be used.
Welcome to the show, Dr. Canday, as well as Dr. Shivdasani. Well, Dr. Canday, I'm going to start with you. Is there a fundamental problem with the Indian diet, considering that majority of our diet, which is around 70 to up to 70%, is made up of carbohydrates?
You're correct, Ekta. About 60 to 70% of our diet is consumed as carbohydrates. However, I'm here to tell you that as per the National Institute of Nutrition, the ICMR, last year released a guidelines 2023, which says that you can get better with your protein consumption if you do your combinations right. So if you combine your combinations of proteins as well as cereals, that is pulses, you will get it right. So it's something very simple. If I give you an example like rice, which is lacking in protein, especially amino acids called lysine, and the pulses, which are lacking in methionine and cysteine. So if you mix both of them together and you make a khichdi, you will automatically get the good quality protein, and although it's a vegetarian plant-based diet, you are still able to achieve. So it's all about how you are eating and what you're eating. So a combination of an idli sambar or even a paratha with curds makes that life easier.
Okay, so you're saying that the combination of food is correct to get the protein
Yes,
into the diet as
balance.
well. But Dr. Vishakha, what are the key problems that you're seeing in your practice when it comes to nutrition?
I see lots and lots of metabolic diseases that come to me. So whether it is obesity, whether it is polycystic ovaries, whether it is dyslipidemias, fatty liver, type 2 diabetes, all of them. So I've been seeing this for a long time, but the sad thing is now we're seeing it in much younger age groups. So we're seeing kids who come with it. And that really tells you what the future is going to be. So I think that needs to be addressed, and that's really sad. Or the other thing I'm seeing post-COVID is that the cases of autoimmune conditions, especially gut-related autoimmune conditions, whether it's irritable bowel syndrome or their manifestations, whether it is psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis, they have hugely surged post-COVID.
Well, I'm just going to come to kids now because there is a contrary which is taking place in India. One is that kids are malnourished, and secondly, kids are becoming more obese in the country. First, let's start with malnourishment. How would you define malnourishment in a child? And can kids who can afford healthy food still be malnourished?
Yes, of course, that's absolutely a very valid question. As on today, we do get kids on both the sides of the gamut, and we say kids who are undernourished, that's because they do not get enough of the good quality nutrients. When we talk about good quality nutrients, we're talking about good quality proteins, good quality carbs, and the fats. Whilst when we talk about obesity and malnourishment of children who can afford to eat, what they lack in their diet is in nutrients such as fiber, good quality carbohydrates, proteins, as well as good quality fats. What they excessively have is excessive amount of processed food, which is high in sugars and fats, and the eating pattern. So the lifestyle, the sleep, and the digitization takes a lot of their time. So a little concentration on physical activity as well as the right food choices that has to be made. It's difficult for people who have working parents, who don't have time to cook food, and they have to rely on outside food for their preparations. But I think with a little bit of menu planning and a foresight into what the family is eating makes a lot of difference to families who are able to now choose the right food for their children, especially in the tiffin boxes.
Okay. What is the connection between processed food and obesity in kids today?
So usually if you look at any processed food, it is generally high in saturated fats, high in trans fats, and high in sugars. And most of the foods that are processed, which is available outside, are a combination of the fat and the sugar. And these processed foods lack fiber. So they have very little nutrition value in terms of vitamins, minerals, and the phytonutrients, which is the fiber and the proteins. So the combination of, even if you look at a protein food that is available outside, it is always combined with a fat. So it's always converted into a fat processed food. So the entire aspect of this is actually how the food is processed when it is cooked.
So would you say that, it's a complete no when it comes to anything out of a packet for kids?
No. It's not a complete no. It's very important that even the packet foods have to be read for their labeling, to see how much of sodium is there inside it, to see what are the ingredients that you are feeding your child. So all packets food may be convenience foods. So it's not that we are saying do not have convenience foods. It's just that what you are choosing should be in the right perspective. So when you are choosing a convenience food which may be in a packet, but it has got sufficient amount of fiber, it may also be fortified, it may have reduced sodium. So those kind of foods can be chosen for a child. But all I'm trying to say is that whenever you are offering food for the child, remember that there is certain kind of training that you are also giving to your child and imparting your child at that moment. So if you are trying to do food from the packet, you have to be able to distinguish between two foods.
Okay. Well, Dr. Vishakha, what about diets and NCDs, non-communicable diseases, say such as obesity as well as blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes? Can it all be reversed with a good diet?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to know that we don't have a universal answer to this, because your parameters will be completely different from mine, will be different from hers. So to universally say that something can be eliminated completely using one part of lifestyle is not necessarily correct. So there is no blanket rule to begin with. Can it hugely benefit? The answer is yes, because there are certain universal principles that apply across the board. But we have to understand there's a lot of differential also. Your gut microbiome is different from mine. Your genetic pool is different from mine. Your likes and preferences are different from mine. So we have to take all of that into account. Only then can your gut microbiome is definitely different from mine. And so we have to take all those into account before we can answer that question to say whether they can be eliminated or not. But like I said, there is a huge difference that can be made with lifestyle, especially with diet.
What is the ideal diet for diabetics?
First thing I would say, to go back to that, would be cut off processed food. And if you're a diabetic, I wouldn't say limit, I would say cut off processed food. Nothing that comes out of a tin, can, bottled, is processed, should be used. Place only in the trash can. Liquid sugars. So there is this myth that, you know, you can have liquid sugars, whether it is honey, maple syrup, agave. No, our grandparents had it, our ancestors had it, and it's okay. The fact is, if you're diabetic, you already have a problem, and you cannot then use these sugars, whether they're natural or not. The same thing goes for fruit juice. I have, you know, so many people who come and tell me, but it's natural, we've just squeezed the orange juice. No, but it's pure fructose. Glucose is metabolized by every single cell in your body. Fructose is metabolized essentially by your liver. So when you are drinking liquid sugar, you're going to cause that spike in blood sugar and spike in insulin, and there's no question then that you're going to worsen your condition. So if you're a diabetic, you don't have an option but to give up liquid sugars. The second thing I would say is, of course, like you began by saying, we are a country which is very low in protein. So you need to make sure you're having adequate protein, especially if you're a diabetic, and good bioavailable protein. So whether you're veg or non-veg, it's frankly quite easy to make sure you get enough protein. So that has to be calculated and given correctly. And don't fear your fats. In this country, everybody says, oh my God, you're eating butter, you're eating ghee, that's bad for you. No. Eliminate the pro-inflammatory fats, the omega-6 and 9 fat. Those will kill you. Those are the ones you need to be fearful from. These oils have to be eliminated. Use good fat. Use ghee. Use olive oil. You don't need to use avocado oil, which is prohibitively expensive. You can use mustard oil as one of the only seed oils that actually is good for you. So you can use that. But whether you're a diabetic or not, why is fat so important, especially if you're a diabetic? We have 3 food groups: carbohydrate, protein, fat. We've spoken about the carbs and said what we need to eliminate. Within the carbs, you must have the fibrous ones. So vegetables and fruits are great for you. Even if you're a diabetic, make sure you're having a low glycemic ones, the ones that are not full of sugar. So that you should have. Proteins, you must have, because you need your muscle mass, you need it for immunity, and will help every diabetic. Fat is hugely important, especially for a diabetic. Of all these 3 macros, nothing balances blood sugar as much as fats do. So if you're going to go on a low-fat diet, like people say, but we have low-fat yogurt and we have, you know, low-fat milk, I tell everybody, please stop, have full-fat everything. Just make sure the fat is a good quality fat. Your brain functions on fat, so your cognition will decline. And nothing satiates you more than fats do. So if you're a diabetic, and if I'm going to tell a diabetic, no, you can't eat certain carbs, what are you going to eat? So you eat protein and you eat your good fat. Okay. And not only will your blood sugar stabilize, you'll feel good, and, you know, the parameters change so fast. We see this at the clinic all the time.
Okay, all right. So fats are good for you. That's the word coming in, even for diabetics. We're going to take a short break, but we have a lot more questions lined up. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're still tuned into the Health Matters on CNBC TV18. We're discussing nutrition. Well, Dr. Shivdasani, I wanted to get your thoughts on migraines and diet. What's the connection, and do you think migraines can be controlled with a diet?
To a huge extent, absolutely. So water plays a big role. Hydration is key, and most of us are, we don't drink enough water, especially when we're sitting in air-conditioned
And how much
rooms.
water should we drink, actually? Should it be 8 glasses?
No, I always tell my patients, look at the color of your urine. And that will be your best indicator. See, someone might have a kidney disease, someone might have other issues, you might be working out more than me. So just to say that 8 glasses, 9 glasses, it's not a universal answer. Look at the color of your urine. If the color of your urine is pale white, closer to whitish color, that means you're well hydrated.
Okay.
But if it's very concentrated, deep yellow, that means you're dehydrated.
Okay, now getting back to migraines.
Yeah. Okay, so you need to have enough water, hydrate well. You need to make sure you've got enough iron. A lot of women with iron deficiency get migraines. Now remember, iron is not the same as hemoglobin. You can have a normal hemoglobin report, but you can still be very low in iron, so that's important to test. And then of course we give them foods that are rich in iron. Sometimes we need to supplement with medication also for that, but that is probably the commonest cause, as is magnesium deficiency. So we test it, and if you're low in magnesium, then we prescribe a lot of green leafy vegetables, which are high in magnesium, especially because they're chelated and they get chlorophyll. So they're really high in magnesium. So you include that. I like the use of omega-3 because it's usually anti-inflammatory, so that helps. So whether you're doing it through a supplement or diet where you're going to eat lots of nuts and seeds and fatty fish, that really helps with migraines also.
Okay. All right. Dr. Canday, what is the connection between diet and nutrition and cancer? For example, do you recommend people who are diagnosed with cancer to look at a diet which is specific to them?
Yes, we do look at an anti-inflammatory diet, and this diet contains a lot of phytonutrients as well as antioxidants. So we look at the specificity of getting good amount of antioxidants in the diet, especially because if they are undergoing any treatment such as chemotherapy, radiation and any other cancer treatments, fruits that are rich in fruits, vegetables, seeds, as well as good amount of fiber is very important for them. However, we also look at certain herbs and homemade ingredients such as, tulsi, basil, jeera, and our own very kitchen herbs, which are also very good in a lot of other anti-cancer agents. So we do recommend an anti-inflammatory diet in these cases.
What is the advantage of IF?
You name me the organ of the body and there is an advantage to IF. I mean, there is, whether it's to...
And this is for NCDs as well?
If you're looking at, see, I'll tell you, any NCD which is a hormonal NCD, you have to do intermittent fasting under guidance. Else it will backfire, and that's what gives IF a bad name. But it's not the fasting of any sort, whether it's intermittent, whether it's time restricted, that the study talks about, whether it's a 5-2, there are 20 different kinds of fasting. Whatever fasting you do, the reason fasting gets a bad name because it's done badly. So when you talk about NCDs, when you talk about diabetes, thyroid, these kind of things, if you're not going to do it under guidance, of course it's going to backfire. But why are you blaming the diet? You blame the way you're doing it because you're doing it incorrectly.
Okay.
But if you talk about brain health, you talk about gut health, you talk about not weight loss but fat loss, you talk about cholesterols, you talk about sugar control, there is nothing that IF doesn't help with.
Dr. Canday, what would the ideal Indian diet be?
Okay. So when I prescribe an Indian diet to anybody who comes to me, whether it's a patient or a person who is for wellness, I ask them to choose an order of eating. So in an order of eating, I ask them to eat their fibers first. So if you see fibers first, second is protein, and last is your carbs. That's how you can choose your diet. You also divide your plate in this fashion. So if you see your lunch plate will have fibers first, would be either a vegetable from your salad or a soup or from your sabzi that is cooked. You can choose proteins from vegetarian as well as non-vegetarian source like a curd or a paneer, and the non-vegetarian source from an egg or a chicken or a fish. Then comes with your carbs. these days, there's a lot of popularity for millets, and I agree that millets is a very good choice to make. So you can make so many things out of millets. So maybe 1/4 of your plate can be millets, yeah, and the rest can be your fruits and or vegetables or fiber or like a curd or a chas. You can have that.
Okay. All right. We're going to end this show by asking you a couple of rapid fire questions. So we just want a quick answer to them. I'll start with you, Dr. Canday. Are white rice, potatoes and bread bad for you?
No, it's not bad for you if you add adequate fiber to it.
Okay. Are the yellows of eggs good or bad?
It's not bad at all. In fact, it has phospholipids, it has got vitamin K2, and it has got so many other nutrients which are good for you.
Okay. Is milk good or bad for children?
It's not bad at all. It's good source of calcium, phosphorus and magnesium.
All right. Dr. Vishakha, superfoods, do they exist or is it just a marketing gimmick?
If 80% of your diet is clean, then the addition of superfoods will hugely help. But if your diet is crap, throw the superfoods. It's not going to make any difference to you.
Okay. And which is the best superfood?
I like mushrooms because it really helps cognition, helps as a prebiotic. Black coffee is great if you stick with 1 cup. So turmeric, black pepper is also great.
Okay. All right. Dr. Vishakha, how many fruits should we consume in a day?
You can do 2 or 3 if you don't have a metabolic problem, but if you've got any of the sugars, insulin resistance, etc., then stick with 0 to 1.
Foods high in vitamin D3 as well as B12.
Virtually no foods are high in D3, except some small quantity, maybe in some fatty fish and egg yolk. You need to get it through sunlight or a supplement. B12, all your protein sources are high in B12, especially the non-vegetarian proteins. And the vegetarian proteins are nuts and seeds and mushrooms.
Okay, well, Dr. Vishakha, how important is proteins for women and should it be consumed only if you're working out?
Absolutely not. A woman requires protein. After 40, we lose 3 to 5% of muscle mass and we get sarcopenia per decade. So whether you lift weights or not, it's your currency to longevity. So you need to include lots of protein, irrespective of workout.
Sources of proteins for vegetarians?
Oh, lots of them. Nuts, seeds, paneer, tofu, lentils, sprouts especially. So lots of, sources, all forms of soya also.
Okay, all right. Dr. Canday as well as Dr. Vishakha, thank you very much for joining in and providing your insights when it comes to nutrition. Thanks very much for watching and do stay tuned for more.
Thank you.
Thank you.